Oh boy, have I got a poem for you. One of the best known poems of all time. If you look around, general consensus is this is the best known of Shakespeare's sonnets. I don't believe that is true. Um, I just don't believe that's true. I think there are a couple others that rank ahead of this one as far as sort of being in the general parlance, but certainly this is one that is pretty recognizable. Certainly this is one that is from which perhaps some cliche springs, right? The wells of time dig back to this poem when you're searching for love poetry. And golly, it is one of the most romantic poems you're ever going to read. Right? Right. Well, we'll get to that. Welcome to Strip Cover Lit, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I'm Aaron Ford, and we are here for another poetry discussion, which will appear, of course, in 3 playlists on this channel. 30 must-read poems, a playlist that I'm pretty proud of so far. The poetry discussion playlist, which is now approaching 700 videos strong, and a playlist of Shakespeare's sonnets here on the channel. This video will have 3 parts. We will have a brief bio of William Shakespeare, a kind of wrap-up of what it is that Shakespeare is known for writing as far as poetry is concerned, and then an analysis for this poem. So, who was William Shakespeare? William Giuseppe Shakespeare was born April 23, 1564, in Stratford-upon-Avon, Warwickshire, England. I have to admit, the English certainly do name their places much more elegantly than we do here in the United States. For example, Shakespeare is from Stratford-upon-Avon, Warwickshire, and I am from Kansas City, Missouri. Though I'll definitely take American food over theirs. Also, yes, I did make up a middle name because Shakespeare did not have one. Sue me. For reference, 1564 was the same year Galileo Galilei was born. It was the first time anyone documented a sighting of a rat king, and it was the year the Italian artist and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Michelangelo died. William's father, John, was a glover. No, not that Glover, a glove-making glover. He was also well regarded enough to serve as an alderman, a type of city councilman. Though, for reasons unknown to us, all that changed in the late 1570s. John lost his position as an alderman, and some illegal wool purchases cost his business as well, spiraling the family into harder conditions. Unfortunate indeed, but who is to say how much of the young playwright's sense of justice and tragedy were rooted here? And, perhaps, his propensity for writing royalty came from his mother, Mary Arden, themselves gentry, whose lineage is traceable all the way back to the Norman invasion of 1066. November 27, 1582, at 18 years old, William Shakespeare married Anne Hathaway. No, not that Anne Hathaway, though I kinda like it. Historians often say things like, there may have been haste in this arrangement, haste in this marriage, because the marriage banns were only read once as opposed to the customary 3 times. How strange. There may have been haste to this marriage. Anne Hathaway gave birth to their first child, Susanna, 6 months later. I'll let you do the math on that. February of 1585, the Shakespeares had twins, Hamnet and Judith. Then Shakespeare, like Jesus, disappears from history for a few years, until he pops up in London in 1592, where he began playing Quidditch for Ravenclaw. Obviously, that's a joke. He was producing his plays on the big stage of London, and his education, or lack thereof, was getting him sneered at by the fancy quote-unquote university wits, as they have come to be known, like Christopher Marlowe, with Marlowe's fellow college boy, Robert Greene, not that one, saying, quote, "There is an upstart crow, beautified with our feathers, that with his tiger's heart wrapped in a player's hide, supposes he is as well able to bombast out a blank verse as the best of you, and being an absolute Johannes factotum, is in his own conceit the only shake scene in a country." With this quote, Greene had mocked Shakespeare on several levels, and even mocks a line from Shakespeare's Henry VI, where the tiger's heart is wrapped around a woman's hide. But by the time of that quote, Shakespeare's name was made, even if his reputation was not yet made as the greatest author of all time. A few years later, his son Hamnet would die of unknown causes, and it seems something snapped in William Shakespeare, as his most acclaimed works, including the ominously titled Hamlet, Macbeth, King Lear, Much Ado About Nothing, Measure for Measure, Midsummer Night's Dream, The Merchant of Venice, Othello, maybe Romeo and Juliet, as well as the form and genre-destroying portfolio of 154 sonnets, all followed that date. Despite the fact that William Shakespeare was already 32 years old when his son passed. All told, his works are believed to total between 37 and 39 plays, depending on where you're getting your facts, the aforementioned 154 sonnets, 2 long narrative poems, and myriad less famous poems. Not to mention he's believed to have invented or introduced 1,700-ish new words, including such bangers as bedroom, majestic, lonely, undress, critic, addiction, and Jessica. And how many words did Robert Greene coin? With his fancy pedigree from academe. Ooh, academe, that's another one. That one probably belongs to Shakespeare as well as the fact that Shakespeare was part owner in the Globe Theatre. In 1613, Shakespeare seems to have retired, though he may not have conceptualized it as such. Not long thereafter, he had a night out with the boys, those boys being Michael Drayton, a poet, and Ben Jonson, a poet and playwright in his own right. It is conjectured that that night went well, possibly too well, because Shakespeare caught a fever and died the next day, April 23rd, the day he's believed to have been born. But, 52 years later. In his will, he famously left his wife, Anne Hathaway, his second best bed. One must wonder if this is Shakespeare's notorious wit and cunning deployment of innuendo at work. The epitaph on his grave reads, "Good friend, for Jesus' sake forbear to dig the dust enclosed here. Blessed be the man that spares these stones, and cursed be he that moves my bones." So what kind of poems did Shakespeare write? Well, 154 of them were sonnets. What is a sonnet? The sonnet is a popular classical form that has compelled poets for centuries. Traditionally, the sonnet is a 14-line poem written in iambic pentameter, employing one of several rhyme schemes and adhering to a tightly structured thematic organization. The name is taken from the Italian sonetto, or sonetto, which means a little sound or song. But Shakespeare didn't write just any kind of sonnet. He wrote what is now known as a Shakespearean sonnet. Well, what's a Shakespearean sonnet? A variation on the Italian sonnet tradition. The form evolved in England during and around the time of the Elizabethan era. These sonnets are sometimes referred to as Elizabethan sonnets or English sonnets. Although Shakespeare's sonnets have prominently endured for centuries, he was hardly alone in his embrace of this poetic style. Many prominent English poets of the day, from John Donne to John Milton, also wrote sonnets. Shakespearean sonnets feature the following elements. They are 14 lines long. The 14 lines are divided into 4 subgroups. The first 3 subgroups have 4 lines each, which makes them quatrains, with the second and fourth lines of each group containing rhyming words. The sonnet then concludes with a 2-line subgroup, and these 2 lines rhyme with each other. A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, G, G. That is the rhyme scheme. They are typically 10 syllables per line, which are phrased in iambic pentameter. Let me not to the marriage of true minds admit impediments. Love is not love, which alters when it alteration finds, or bends with the remover to remove. Oh no, it is an ever-fixed mark, that looks on tempests and is never shaken. It is the star to every wandering bark, whose worth's unknown, although his height be taken. Love's not time's fool, though rosy lips and cheeks within his bending sickle's compass come. Love alters not with his brief hours and weeks, but bears it out, even to the edge of doom. If this be error, and upon me proved, I never writ, nor no man ever loved. So what is it that we have here? One of the most romantic poems of all time? Well, not so fast. Let's get into things, because I think that there is a deeper message at play here. Now, to take this poem on, what we're going to do is one of the tricks that people often employ when breaking down the sonnets. Shakespearean sonnets are 3 quatrains, which is A, B rhyme, C, D rhyme, E, F rhyme, and then a couplet, which is G. Good game. So 3 quatrains. There's 4 lines in a quatrain. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and the final couplet. Of course, it's going to split the page there. Just our luck. Now, let's go through this quatrain by quatrain. Let me not to the marriage of true minds admit impediments. Love is not love, which alters when it alteration finds, or bends with the remover to remove. What are we saying here? Well, we have introduction of the idea of marriage and love. True love. Love and marriage go together like a horse and carriage. But what we're saying in these lines is that love does not meld itself to anything else. You want to remove it, you do not remove it. You want to change it, it does not change it. There is no greater force than love. Quatrain 2. Oh no, it is an ever-fixed mark that looks on tempests and is never shaken. It is the star to every wandering bark, whose worth's unknown, although its height be taken. So love is constant. Love is constant, ever fixed mark, like the North Star. That idea will come back later, but uh, ever fixed, like the North Star, it gives you your direction. Direction, that's what I said. It is priceless, and it's worth it. So it's priceless, and it is worth's unknown, although its height be taken. You can't put a price on love, and it is your guiding star once you find it. The third quatrain. Love's not time's fool, though rosy lips and cheeks within his bending sickle's compass come. Love alters not with his brief hours and weeks, but bears it out even to the edge of doom. Then we get this even to the edge of doom. That is a strange thing to introduce right there, especially right before the final couplet, but we have it. Love is not defeated by time, although the lovely might be. You fall in love with your baby when she has rosy lips and cheeks. And by the time you guys are getting older, maybe those lips and cheeks look a little bit different, but the love is still there under it all. So the time within his bending sickle's compass. So sickle, you've seen the Grim Reaper carrying a sickle. That is what the visual is for time here. You're gonna die, and those things are true. Time will drain the lovely, but it will not drain the love. Even if, so that final thing, that even if that love might be ruinous, even bears it out, but bears it out even to the edge of doom. Even if this love is absolutely toxic, even if this love is absolutely ruinous for those individuals in love, it does not matter. Be this error and upon me proved, I never writ, nor no man ever loved. If I'm wrong about the fact that love doesn't move, love doesn't shake, love is constant, love is not alterable, there is no tempest, no tempest can come in between love. No other woman will draw your eye when you're in love. Love is not defeated by time. That time is not constant, but love is. If those things are false, I have never written, and no one else has ever loved. What a romantic poem, right? Well, it does sound rather genuine, right? This is kind of the stuff that we have come to take for granted with love. Go with the heart, right? It might be ruinous, but go with your heart. That love is true. That love is ever fixed. Feels genuine. Oscar Wilde had a quote about genuine poetry. It goes something like this. All bad poetry springs from genuine feeling. Do you think that Shakespeare wrote poetry that Oscar Wilde was under the impression was bad? Maybe. But I think that there's something else we can look at through this poem, because it does feel genuine. doesn't it? At the very top level, it does feel genuine, because these are the things that we are told love is. These are the things that we are told to believe about love. Do we believe that Shakespeare, William Shakespeare, the guy everyone says the greatest writer of all time, changed the English language, morphed what poetry is, morphed what plays are, morphed what the idea of a narrative is, has a type of sonnet named after him, even if it's not just his type of sonnet? He was so well known for it that we went ahead and named it after him. Do we believe that that guy, who also revolutionized the ideas of irony and entendre, do we believe that that guy wrote such an earnest poem? I don't. How can I say that? This poem reeks of inexperience, does it not? This poem reeks of your middle school crush. Now, probably you weren't writing it in these words, right? If you were, then you are pretty special. But this is the kind of poem that you wrote to your high school sweetheart, to your puppy love interest in whatever grade you had your first boyfriend or girlfriend. Love, true love, it is constant. It is ever present. It is never wavering. I won't look at any other girls. All that's in here. The guy who revolutionized irony and made it a hallmark of what literature is wrote that poem. So the big arguing point against that, the big arguing point against whether or not there is some irony to be taken in this poem. So I'm going to present an idea for that, right? Oftentimes, and I don't know if this is a fair criticism, that's why I don't want to end with it. Oftentimes, people talk about Shakespeare's marriage to Anne Hathaway not being happy. We have a little bit of documented evidence that perhaps Shakespeare was carousing about. We have Shakespeare leaving his wife in his will, his second best bed. Is that him calling his wife the second best bed he ever had? Bed meaning to sleep with, right? Difficult for that guy to, with a straight face, write this poem, right? I don't really think that's all that fair criticism. But it's definitely interesting to talk about when interpreting this poem. With the over-the-top ideas, the puppy dog love comparisons in this poem, for the greatest writer of all time to be making those seems kind of ham-fisted. The argument against this interpretation and interpretation of irony for this poem, I would imagine, would be this final couplet. If this be error and upon me proved, I never writ, nor no man ever loved. Well, this is Shakespeare, baby. The Shakespeare. He wrote. But did he write everything completely buttoned up? Nor no man ever loved. I think this is Shakespeare admitting to us that he doesn't believe in love. Go back to the I never wrote anything. It could be a self-deprecating joke, right? I imagine this is one of the... So this is one of Shakespeare's better-known poems. So I imagine that part of the whole Shakespeare never existed conspiracy theory comes back to this, right? A wink and a nod towards the reader here. I never wrote anything because I never existed. I am a fabrication. Billy Wigglestick, William Shakespeare. But I think what could be the point being made here, I never wrote. Who is the I? I know it sounds like a stupid question, but if we're employing irony, is the I the writer? If this poem is intended as irony, because look, let's go back through. It has to be irony. It has to be irony. Love never alters? Well, then it's going to be a short love because one of the two of you is going to kill the other. Or bends, or with the remover, remove. Nobody ever falls out of love. Oh, it is an ever-fixed mark. Love? Yeah, for 15 minutes. The first 15 minutes you think you're in love with someone, it's who that person is right then. You don't know everything about that person. And if you're not willing to change who that person is in your mind, well, then that love expires right then. That looks on tempests and is never shaken. Billy, we think we know you looked on tempests and were shaken. Is the star to every wandering bark? That's certainly not true. Now we're not even talking about people who are in love. You're talking about every ship at sea. So every guy milling about is looking for love. No, certainly not. Worth unknown, unmeasurable. Okay, we can any conception we have of love, we can say those things. Love's not time's fool, the rosy lips and cheeks within his bending sickle's compass come. Okay, we can grant that. It's the next statement where he goes too far. Love alters not with his brief hours and weeks. If you've ever loved anyone, I'm not even talking romantic love. You love your parents, you love your siblings, you love your puppy dog. There's moments where you don't. There's stretches of time where you don't, and you just have to remind yourself, tomorrow, I'm going to love this person again. I mean it, right? But bears it out, even to the edge of doom. This is not true either. Every one of us has in their own life a sample case of someone who really did love another person, but that other person was on a downward spiral, was on a path of self-destruction. And the person who loved them had to walk away. At the edge of doom, some things are more sacred, right? So, if this is in irony, if this is written in irony, there are technically two writers. There's the person who writes the word, and there's the person from whomst the meaning comes, right? There's both of those things because this poem has lived through the ages from that first writer. That first writer put these words on the page, and everyone thought, ooh, this is so lovely. The second guy with the meaning, he's in the back with his arms crossed saying, hey, they bought that one. Hook, line, and sinker, baby, I got them. If they were just willing to put a little bit more work into here, now, maybe I'm the one who's wrong, right? But anyway, that is at least a reading of Sonnet 116 that I think is the reading for this poem. I cannot imagine this being an earnest or genuine poem from Shakespeare. I have to believe that there is irony here. That is all I have for this poetry discussion. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting a like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other literature lovers. If you find yourself here by chance but not design, literature is the only thing I talk about on this channel, dropping multiple videos every single week. There's poetry every Monday, and as always, I hope to have you back for the next one.